First shall be last and last shall be first. And I always took that to mean like, well, like rich people, they're screwed, and like meek people, it's gonna be great for the meek. They're gonna rinse it in the afterlife. But then I asked myself in all honesty, in your life, Russell, who is first and who is last? First, Russell. Last, people that can't do anything for Russell. Now, when I am awakened, when I receive the kingdom of heaven, Russell will be last. And first will be people that can do nothing for Russell. Oh, and what a liberty, what a relief. Then I'm out of the way.
I'm just playing, I don't fight, I do pray. I only go the way of Mr. Yahweh.
It's not often I sit down with somebody and they say something that makes me think. Bro, this was great.
I love you guys.
Will you give me something to think about?
My own damn way.
I had a lot of fun on this interview.
Russell Brand, I'm excited about this interview.
Yeah, I'm very excited about it, George.
You kind of remind me, now this is kind of like a crazy way to start the podcast, but you read the Bible, you read the gospel now.
Yeah.
Paul went through it. He kind of picks people that have a background that is a little bit darker so he could shine brighter in that person, so that way people can know where the fruit is coming from. You going through the Hollywood and not knowing who Jesus is, being where you're at, and then now knowing who Jesus is, and unapologetically, it's very honorable. And so I just wanted to say I look up to you before we even start this podcast.
God, George, that's really lovely, and I'm very flattered by what you've said, and I feel very happy and honoured to be with both of you. You've seemed already and immediately like such bright, radiant, and open people. And to start with that compliment about Paul is really apposite and heartening, because I suppose all personal narcissism might in its own way be certainly an attempt to be your own God. And even if you don't want to go as extreme as narcissism, self-centeredness or individualism. Not saying that we're not all individual and that there isn't a great beauty in our diversity and our distinctions and our differences. But as a Christian, I'm learning that when it comes to the most important matters, we are all redeemed, we are all forgiven, that there is no significant individual merit among us, that we are all forgiven collectively. I love this, and I loved it when I heard that if it had just been you, Christ would have come and sacrificed himself for you individually. These kind of ideas and these kind of truths softened my heart very deeply. Now, in my sort of self-infatuation, which again, it wasn't entirely consuming, because I've been in recovery now for 21 years, and you can't stay free from drink and drugs without acknowledging a very important truth. Beyond whatever attachments you might have to alcohol or drugs or behavioral addictions, by which, not to be cryptic, I mean, it could be pornography or food or sex, you have made those things false idols. You have set up altars to false gods, but the central deity is the self. It's very hard, or certainly speaking personally, it's very hard as an addict, as a man in recovery, to accept that dynamic. But one of the things I understood is that I always had Jesus Christ at arm's length because of the holy man, holy God dynamic, that I thought, I can't surrender to some man, even if that man is also God. Because my whole life has been, don't tell me what to do. I don't trust authority. I don't trust anybody. These were the early lessons of my life. Now, the reason I'm excited that you mentioned Paul is because since actually doing something so intrepid and ludicrous as reading the Bible, instead of I just thought, I know what's in there. I sort of somehow thought I knew it anyway. I've always thought that. I'm quite clever. I'll guess I get the idea. Yeah, died, born, redemption, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. I get it. Now, when I actually read it, turns out it wasn't what I thought it said in there. And in the figure of Paul, I found so much inspiration and excitement and warmth and compassion, and indeed, obviously, with the first apostle or significant apostle to transform posthumous to Christ's physical life, the opportunity for someone that's full-on 100% committed to the persecution and destruction of Christians to become the number one. This is my deal. I'm going to spread this everywhere, day and night, wrong, or through every possible permutation, jails, trials, shipwrecks, earthquakes, you name it, I'm into it. There's something like a book of Acts, and then the subsequent letters blown my mind. It's blown my mind because of the character of Paul. Sometimes I think, well, man, that's just a human being, like me. I can get into that. So I've gone from like thinking that I am Jesus to recognizing I need Jesus and wanting to be like Paul, wanting to be like, live for this thing, live for it like you need a revolution, live for it like not Christianity so I can fit in with the world, but Christianity so that I can become who I am in relationship to him, that we might change the world together with humility. First humility before honor. I mean, it's raining down on me. I'm sort of being changed all the time.
Well, like, remember, the word became flesh and then it went back to being the word. So when you have passion, you look for Jesus like it's hidden treasure, you'll find him. It's the man who doesn't want to find. That's why the scripture says the eyes and ears that want to see and want to hear. When you go from all the way from the Messiah complex to actually worshiping the real Messiah, how do you have compassion now for people that are like hurting you? Because when you look at what Jesus did for you, even when you were the 99 and that sheep that ran away, and how he still loved you, and even though your own family may have not protected you, he still did. And he still brought you to the life that you needed. Do you have a different type of eyes to a man that harms you now? Do you see differently at your enemies?
Yeah, I suppose you, I mean, as C.S. Lewis said, you have to forgive yourself because he forgives you. And why would we not forgive others? I can't set myself up as a higher tribunal than God. Forgiveness is a precondition. Now, even from a pre-Christian perspective, I understood the necessity of forgiveness from a practical perspective. So I'm not talking about from the sacred or the soteriological, I think is a word, the study of life after death. I'm talking about it from a purely practical perspective. If I'm holding on to resentment or if I'm condemning others, it's difficult for me. Now, I experience still a lot of resentment. I do that. I do set myself up as a higher tribunal. I do occasionally reposition myself at the head of the altar. I continually do it. That seems to be the tension and dynamic that defines my life. Surrender absolutely to God. Oh no, I'm back in charge again. Like I read the other day, Luke 10:18, that I was there when Satan was cast out of heaven like lightning. I've given you the gift now, I'm paraphrasing, to walk among scorpions and snakes and cast out demons in my name. But remember, it's because your name is written in heaven. When I read that, there was so much that struck me hard. One, the casting of Satan out, because I understand Satan to be the kind of principle, as it were, the archetype of setting myself up as God, that Satan wants his own principality, that me, when I'm in sin, it's like I'm trying to set up my own circuitry and my own energy systems. I'm going to like defibrillate myself into life. I can use pleasure. I can use all of these things, find different ways to create my own dominion. I understand the satanic aspect of that now. Furthermore, that we can cast out demons, that we can walk among serpents and snakes, but only if we acknowledge his name is in heaven. So like I sometimes feel so protected and so held and in grace and indeed in faith, like oh, I'm living by a higher frequency. I felt it today in Milwaukee of all places. I just tumbled into the day. I got up early. I went to like a 12-step meeting. I didn't have no I knew I had to get to this place. I didn't know where it was. I ended up getting a lift from a couple of soldiers, like drove me to the place. Then someone that I met at the 12-step meeting drove me somewhere else. I was chatting to people all over the place, and I was in complete faith. And I'll tell you this thing, even though it's quite intimate, and I'm slightly embarrassed about it, is I felt like I was in God's presence. And I felt at ease, having had this beautiful conversation with this, the chief editor at the Atlanta Voice, a black American newspaper for the people of Atlanta. Me and this dude just had fun and we're playing, just met each other spontaneously. And we're going, so this is Milwaukee, this is the center of the universe. And we're sort of playing this sort of weird game. We just met each other like when kids might meet each other and play. And I felt sort of like a kind of a easy rejoicing. Then I started to think during it, this is good, we're having a really deep, because it went from the play to having a conversation about racial dynamics, the Republican movement and all sorts of stuff, Trump, etc. in America. And I was like, oh, I should be filming this. That was the first sign of me trying to grab or take something. I should be filming this. This would make good content. People would, like all of those old messages of acquisition, acquiring, personal power, sin, pleasure sought away from God. But I was aware enough to not act on those impulses. And I thought, no, just be in the moment with this man. You don't need to get anything, Russell. You are forgiven. You are redeemed. There is nothing to get. You're just here now to convey gratitude and to convey service. And I won that round. Then, though, I got back to the compound. You know, Milwaukee's all segregated in terms of high security because of the Republican convention and because of recent events around Donald Trump, the assassination attempt. So there's high security. There's be high security anyway. But you reach the border of this sort of inner compound and you have to get out of the vehicle where I was being taken by a man, just by God's grace, someone who was just driving me who I didn't know 10 minutes earlier. And when I came back, I was just sort of walking along and I was thinking about how I was helped by God. And we were working on some content and we were coming up for the day's video title and people were sort of saying like, oh, J.D. Vance is the VP pick for Trump. People were sort of you know, it's like you work in social media, different titles and stuff like that. And I sent like a title option and I was very, very relaxed. And while I was typing the title option, I had, hey, Russell. And I was like, yeah, hey. And then I look up and I noticed that there's a security detail, a couple of cars, and then there's a bunch of Secret Service. And there, holding his kid, is J.D. Vance. Hey, Russell! He calls me over, come over, Russell! And I go over to him, and I'm like, hey, man! And I just sort of start chatting to him, and then, like, you know, and I'm thinking, I like get a photograph, like a little selfie, and then the same thing happens in my mind. Oh, J.D. Vance, he's the man of the moment. Oh, I should do an interview with him. I should be doing an interview. I could get something. And he goes, oh, you've come to Christ lately, huh? And I'm like, yeah, I've come to Christ. And I show him my rosary, upon which you also remarked, George. And then I went, can I have like a selfie? And I saw him change. I saw his face change because I went to take from him. Now, I'm not making no comment on J.D. Vance, what kind of character he is, where he stands in the whole...
You're absorbing the room. You're learning.
I tried to take from him. I tried to take from him, and I noticed it in myself. And I noticed that it caused a jarring. It caused a jarring in the connection. And I thought, this is a lesson for me to learn. Remain in surrender. Remain in faith. And whenever you notice yourself trying to take something from somebody, stop it. There is nothing to get. Now, I've got to be forgiving to myself, of course, because I'm a flawed person and I'm fallible. And to deny that would be another form of sin, elder brother sin in prodigal son dynamics, no? And then I'll just go from younger son dynamics to older son dynamics. I've got to get out of being one of the prodigal son or the elder son. I've got to be the son only to him.
This video is sponsored by Manscaped. Growing up, you want to go to the pool. You want to look nice. You want to look smooth. You want to look sexy. You don't want to have little bumps. Trust me, I did, and it was very, very uncomfortable. And it's itchy, and people notice, and it's gross. So if you want the Performance Package 5.0 Ultra, in that package, you're going to get the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra. That thing is a beast. It can go through me and this carpet with one battery. Also, if you order the package, they're going to throw in some cool boxers and a travel bag if you like to travel. And if you do want it, don't forget, hit the link in my description and use my code George for 20% off and free shipping. So you don't have to go to Target or anywhere, because you shouldn't go to Target because you can't use my code there. Or order online. Hit the link in my description. I love this. I love all this. Please go.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful getting to watch you walk this journey, because you're so honest and you want to share so much with people of how you're working it out for yourself. And I think that it's brave and encouraging to people watching someone work things out with your relationship with God, work things out with, oh, is it me? Am I the problem? Oh, wait, hold on. What do I want from this situation? And I just think that it's incredible you're able to share that with everyone, because then they can learn so much from you. And it seems like throughout your life, you've constantly been on a spiritual journey. You've gone through so many waves of finding that spiritualness that would fill you. And do you find that this is the first time that you feel real peace?
Oh, yeah, you're right about peace. Drug addicts have a problem with peace, mate. Like you don't. I was not taught to treasure peace. I thought peace was boredom. I only know high adrenalized states like that. I'm either adrenalized or I'm unconscious. My addiction reached its perhaps most obvious culmination in heroin addiction, and heroin addiction feels like it shuts you down. All of the doubt, all of the loathing, all of the discomfort of having skin, of having a body, of the abrasiveness of this world, of the abrasiveness of inner and outer judgment. Heroin's like, just shuts it down into a sort of a bliss. It's like it takes away all of the raw nerve endings. And then after that, it's sort of like I find peace. I never knew how to recognize it. Before we were recording, I talked about I'm overstimulated. There's a lot of stuff going on. I'm a senator. I'm a senator's wife. Oh, wow, what's going on? Who are all these people? So extraordinary. And I'm only just learning, as you have articulated, Shawna, to recognize the beauty of peace. That peace is what's on offer, not peace with my external circumstances, which may remain turbulent, but that inwardly I can find a peace that passeth all understanding. And I'm trying to return to it whenever I can, because I've always been quite well acquainted with anxiety, and anxiety is just fear in 3 syllables, isn't it?
Since you were very young, you've been dealing with fear and anxiety, right?
Well, I want to circle
Yes,
with anxiety. First, I saw a TikTok, and I thought you would love this TikTok before I even get into it. There's this girl, and she did like this skit, and she goes up to David, and she goes, "Oh my God, David, what was it like being the king and being like this?" And he goes, "Forget that." He goes, "What is it like having the Holy Spirit?" And I was like, dang, that hit me, because I would always look up to David and be like, man, I want to be like David. But it came to be true that like we have what David could never have, and it was the Holy Spirit. That being said, 10 years of me being in this industry, and I was running around, and I thought I was a Christian, but I was a Christian by name. And I'm running around and I'm doing the will of myself, but I'm labeling it like I'm Christian. But what comes with that is no peace, anxiety, depression. And then right over here, I recycle because I throw myself at God. God cleans me, and then I go back into the recycling of the same problems. Circling peace, when he says, "Give me today my bread," he's teaching me in this scripture that every day has its own problems, and I should stay focused on them. And so when I started circling around peace, I felt this, like you said, it's like you can't measure it. It's impossible to measure. So when I felt this, even in the lowest point of my circumstance, I said, God, I know I could live here all the time because you have the ability to make me live here. So what could you help me understand this? And it was in like, not like words coming from heaven, but I opened up my scripture and I asked God for wisdom. And I read it, and I read this verse that changed my life. Because I've read this verse multiple times, but it didn't hit me. But now it did. And it says, seek first the kingdom, and then the rest shall come. Seek first the kingdom and its righteousness, and the rest shall come. And I'm like, what is the... It's so vague, the rest, and it's because it's made for every single one of us. If we wake up and we find God's purpose for us today, first, we don't battle with ego anymore. And we won't need to take from anybody anymore. When I first started my podcast, there was no way I thought I would have you as a guest. There's no way. I even told Reed, I go, God, I don't want to guest. It's just, I don't want to do guests because I'm going to be embarrassed. I just came from Impulsive. I'm not going to get any guests. And then I was like, wait a second, why am I moving with fear? I'm moving with fear. And when I move with fear, I worship Satan. If I worship Satan, then of course I'm going to feel dark and depressed and anxious. And then I said, no, I'm going to move with faith. And then all of a sudden, all of my dream guests started coming out of nowhere. That wasn't my work. I didn't work hard enough. I've been in the game for 10 years. I never scratched the surface. But then the day I gave my career to God and I said, all right, you have it. I'm terrible at this. I don't know what I'm doing. Within 1 year, I did what I couldn't do in 10 years. And all of that is surrounded with peace.
Why were you frightened, please?
Why was I frightened?
Yeah, you said it was a lot of fear, and you've had it hard to let go of the fear. What was the fear?
I guess a lot of ego.
Yeah.
A lot of ego. I mean, even as a Christian, you always want to partner up with God, but we're not the heroes. He is. And so sometimes, even when we know so much about God, we hold this authority. And that's what happens with a lot of Christians. They feel like they're holier than thou because they know his words and they know his righteousness. But you walk around knowing your own sins. And I think that's what a real Christian is. Somebody who knows how far away and how separated he is from God and how much we need his salvation and grace. And then when we receive it, even when an enemy comes to me, I'm like, yo, of course I'm going to forgive you, bro. Because yesterday I asked God for forgiveness like 1,000,000 times, and he still shows me grace, and he still shows me compassion, and I still feel his presence. And then I do want to talk about this because I didn't want to forget this. When you were like, I don't feel his presence, I felt that a lot. When I was in some valleys, I was just like, I don't get it. Why would you leave me? And the first time I ever felt that was in the 3rd grade. And then I read the footprints in the sand where he's like, these are my footprints. They're not yours. That being said, somebody came up to me and said, don't forget that the teacher's always quiet when you're under a test. And I was like, that's why. Because I've been praying for God to lift me up in my wisdom. So he's like, all right, be wise here. So
I like that. Some good stuff in there. Because I used to get angry about that footprints in the sand. That was up on, I remember that being on my friend's mum's kitchen wall. And sort of saying like, that's not good enough. That's what I want you. That's when I want you out in front. I couldn't pick up that kind of like that message. That's when I was carrying you. Well, that was terrible. We did carry you somewhere else. I like how you put it with the teacher is quiet because, we have such a small amount of the code. We're trying to understand an inconceivable and undeterminable amount of knowledge with a limited system for understanding knowledge. This is a rational and somewhat secular way of putting it, and I appreciate that now. What we see, what we glimpse, even through the limitations of the aspects of the electromagnetic light range that we're able to see with the limitations of our instruments, even prior to when I had a more new age sort of a perspective on God, because I've believed in God for a while. I used to use arguments like, why would you think that the limitations of your sensory instruments are equal to the limitations of what is knowable? That's crazy. If you know that there are things that can be seen beyond the electromagnetic light range that other animals can see, if you know that there's olfactory and auditory information that other animals can hear, infrared light, ultraviolet light, is it not possible that we are surrounded now by peculiar phantoms and angels and demons, and all around us beyond the limitations of the senses there are phenomena and magic? So even then, before I sort of had surrendered to a theology and surrendered to Christ, I understood that there is more than the material world. I understood it and I felt it. And as C.S. Lewis says, that once you have had that sense that the veil has shifted, that there is like a great power beyond this world, then the rest of life seems timid and tame, and it gives you a lust, he says, a lust for spirit. And he said, like normal earthly lust, it has the quality of making all else seem of secondary importance while you are in its grasp. And I've known this a long time, and it's drove me to addiction, and it's driven me to all kind of craziness. I wanted to say in response to your verse of seek thee first the kingdom of God, I wanted to say, first of all, the verse, and a couple of things that affected me. One was, first shall be last and last shall be first. And I always took that to mean like, oh, well, like rich people, they're screwed. And like, whereas meek people, it's going to be great for the meek. They're gonna rinse it in the afterlife. But then I asked myself in all honesty, in your life, Russell, who is first and who is last? First, Russell. Last, people that can't do anything for Russell. Now, when I am awakened, when I receive the kingdom of heaven, Russell will be last. And first will be people that can do nothing for Russell. Oh, and what a liberty, what a relief. Then I'm out of the way and I receive this powerful, powerful charge. And all I have to do is get rid of all that Old Testament gear about setting up false altars and false idols. And you know, in Kings, and it's like just king after king going, this idiot also set up a load of false idols and stuff, you know, like
all of us do that. Every single one of us do that. Do you have tired joints and muscles? It's a good thing that this video is sponsored by Blue Emu. This cream works really fast and you won't stink. Blue Emu is an odor-free cream for your muscles and joints that are sold nationwide in Walmart. What I love about this company, guys, is a small business that's ran in Tennessee that competes with the big guys. There's many reasons why I wanted this product to sponsor my show, and the two main ones is the product works, and people that review it, you should go check out for yourself. Their reviews on this product is incredible. And the second reason why is they're super outspoken for the Lord like me, and I love that. Their new jar is actually going to have Matthew's 10:32, and it says, anyone who acknowledges me publicly on earth, I will also acknowledge before my Father in heaven. I don't know, I might be crazy, but if somebody could stand up for the Lord in front of the whole world, then I think that they're on to good things. And if you have some joints and muscles that are tired and you need some odorless free cream, go to Amazon, and to get 20% off, all you got to use my code 20JankoShow at checkout. I'll have the link in the description. Support healthy muscle and joints. Blue Emu. Get it today. Link in my description. 20% off. All of us do that. Every single one of us do that. I wake up every single day accidentally worshiping something else. And I'm like, dude, I got to chill out. Because a lot of people think worship is like with your mouth. I tell people to preach every day, and if it's necessary, use words. You have to, that's why God says you'll know them by their fruit. You cannot work for God's salvation or grace. But when I meet you, I could tell that you have the Holy Spirit and it's really moving through you. It was none of your works. It's the way you walk around in your spirit. I could feel it on you. When you said you were wrestling and you submitted fully to God, it reminded me of Jacob when he was wrestling. It also reminded me of myself and Belle and anyone who has a relationship with God. They tap out and they go, all right, man, you take charge.
Yeah.
What did that feel like, surrendering to Jesus versus other spiritual gods?
More direct, more clarity, like a sort of the personal relationship dynamic made it more vivid. Like I can surrender all day long to a sort of spirit of the universe and to the limitless powers of the deep poetry of quantum mechanics, but that ain't the same as surrendering to someone who gives their life for me, who is a human being as well as a God. How it has felt different as well is not only the way I conceptualize it. Maybe there's a difference in the way I conceptualize it in so much as it's someone that I see and someone that I can talk to and someone that I can feel. And when I notice myself praying a sats means like an imitation. When I notice that, I go, hold on a minute, you're actually meant to be talking to Jesus. And I try to think of all the various Jesuses that I might, you know, will I do someone from medieval art or Renaissance art, or will I do Jim Caviezel, or will I do Jonathan Rumi, like all of the Jesus, all of the renderings. And sometimes I toy with the perfect, like imagine a brother so close that he bears your face and your resemblance, but you, without all of your encumbrances or doubts or scars or perceived physical flaws, the perfect version of yourself outside of you and loving you, the perfect actualization and realization of yourself. For surely each of us, due to our own distinctions and differences, are having an intimate and private and personal relationship with Christ, even if there is an absolute and objective Christ that would be difficult to conceptualize and render physically. And doesn't that make it interesting, the kind of that it's forbidden in some religions to render their prophets, perhaps because that to calcify, ossify and turn into an idol, that figure, is to freeze the limitless potentiality and the personal and particularness of the relationship. But all of that is just about what I have in my mind when I pray, and God, I try to pray all the time now. What really was different is I was crushed, and it was involuntary. Yeah, all of us want to awaken, but none of us want to go through the experience of the terrifying and terrible, agonizing crushing of the personal will and the personal perspective. And the gaining of a new perspective is unbelievably painful. To wrench away the sockets that are fixated on self. I did not want to go through that experience. I did not want to go through personal condemnation and shaming, allegation of the most heinous and ugly things that I believe a man can be accused of. I did not want to go through that simultaneously while learning from a 26-week scan that my little son had birth defects and be offered a late-term abortion. All of these things simultaneously. I didn't want to go to the famous Great Ormond Street Hospital and be present while my little boy has his chest carved open and his heart taken out of his body, although I wasn't there for that bit because they don't have parents in the room for that bit, although I did offer. None of these things did I want. None of these things would I have chosen. Given the choice, I would reject it all. If I was in charge, if I was God, I would have gone, no, I refuse. And I tried to, fool that I am. Iconoclast and idol worshipper that I am, when we got that scan information, well, like any sort of prospective parent standing in a room getting a scan, when you in that moment where the person doing the scan, it just goes from the bright and breezy, nice and easy, do you want to get this image on a mug or a key ring for the grandparents? And remember, I'm 3 kids in, so I've been through this process. And when suddenly the scan stops and it's Mr. Brown, you might want to take the children outside. And you know that it's one of those moments where the curtain in the temple is torn, where you know that you are in a different reality now. You know that you're in a different reality now. And I, afterwards, on learning, I said to the woman doing the scan, is this ever going to be nothing again? Is this ever going to be nothing again? Like, is there going to be a person I can pay more money to do a better scan that's going to say, no, it's actually all okay? And she said, no, this is now not nothing. And my wife was immediately, even though it weren't something she was able to articulate, she was immediately empowered, I suppose, in her womanhood, but perhaps beyond even that, her motherhood, because she's herself, 3 children deep. But me, I was like, I'm not going to Great Ormond Street. I'm not having like a child with tubes up its nose. I'm not going for all of that. I rejected it. But now I have been to Great Ormond Street. Now I have been and seen the countless sick children and valiant nurses and doctors that occupy the hallways, corridors and wards of Great Ormond Street. And now I know, who are you, Russell, to reject Great Ormond Street Hospital? Who are you to reject a child that needs heart surgery and that has other challenges to contend with? Because underneath it and beyond it and behind it, what was there? Love. More and more love, like an almost inconceivable love, an inconceivable relief. And indeed, I am privileged to have had the situation of being haunted by the demented spectacle of paparazzi being pursued while I went into an oncology ward for children and walked past, nothing will put your problems of being scandalized in the media into perspective more quickly than other people's children with cancer. Then you recognize where you are. And all of the sort of questions that arise out of why does God allow this to happen or that happen, ultimately amount to preferences. And for me, my life is too challenging to be reliant on a God of personal preferences. I need a God to whom I can absolutely submit and surrender. And when I submit and surrender, and as I have said, it has been through the process of suffering and fear and anguish and brokenness. But now I see both uses of the word broken like a vase, but broken like a wild horse that needed to be tamed, that it could be in alignment with a greater will, with a greater rider. Now I have a different perspective. And on the other side of all of this trauma, and some of this trauma incidentally continues, is God. And this piece that we mentioned formerly, or that passeth all understanding, it has to be, at least my half of the bargain has to be completely unconditional, as I know his is. And again, both of you, it's an ongoing exploration which remains uncertain for me. I don't feel like, I've done this now. I know it lives in the present. So I know that how the fragility and gentleness of it.
When you were talking about anxiousness, I can't even imagine how anxious you were when you were going, I guess this is the best way that I put it. In the scripture, when Jesus was like, don't be anxious, be grateful. It's kind of tough to especially if you tell somebody who's going through something, hey man, be grateful. You're like, buddy, come walk my shoes for 4 minutes and then tell me about being grateful. But it's digging deep and really, really, really searching for our creator that I find this sense of peace. And I think that it helped me when I know it sounds almost impossible, but it's every man could be grateful regardless of the circumstance he's in. And when you choose to choose gratefulness, 2,000 years ago, before they could open up your brain and study it, scientists now are saying that you can't be anxious and grateful at the same time. It's impossible. So he literally gave you a different solution. He goes, hey, be grateful. And then when I'm hearing that you're going through and helping these other children out, and you're seeing this, and now the paparazzis are coming after you, but it's switched your perspective. And you're like, well, where did this peace come from? It came from obeying God. You didn't even know you're obeying God. And that's the best part about it. If you obey God, knowing or not knowing, the rewards come. You reap what you sow what you reap. So I wanted to first say I'm terribly sorry that you had to deal with that. I really am, from the bottom of my heart. On the other hand, I'm just so excited to see how strong and brave you are when it comes to these circumstances. Because this sounds stupid to say this, but I was sitting in my house and I was watching Forgetting Sarah Marshall with my parents. And I was in Arizona. I was nowhere near in the industry at all. And we were watching you. There was a scene where you were like, go with God. And it was this sex thing. And my mom's this super Christian woman. She's like, whoa. And then she looked at me and she goes, oh, no. And for a minute, she's explaining to me about the blasphemy in it. But I find it so funny that through the gospel and through real life, it's always the one who we look at as oh, he's sinning, that really moves in more of God's favor than we even understand. So what is it like going from dressing up like Saddam after 9/11 and saying
Osama bin Laden.
Yeah. Not taking anybody's shit. You got fired because you're like, no, I stand on my business. This is who I am. This is how I perform. And you know what the best part is? It always worked in your favor. If it did, you got fired from this job, you got a better job here. And then you just kept going. So naturally you realize, I'm Russell Brand. It's on brand. I don't care what you say. I'm going to keep escalating. Going from that type of lifestyle where you're like, no, I'm not going to obey. I'm going to go this way and I'm still going to succeed. How does it feel submitting and knowing that you can't do that with God? You have to obey God's law or there will be a not light perspective out of it.
Do you wonder if how... when we talk about the Trinity... and little things I've been piecing together, when
I'm studying that right now myself.
Right, so it says we in the Garden of Eden, they will become like we are. It's not.
Let's make them in our image.
Yeah, our image and all that, the plural. And then again, C.S. Lewis saying, I can't remember exactly, kind of a long quote, but he was saying, even at the moment, like the moment where he is on the cross, unable to breathe, you know, and that in itself is sort of preempted in one of the Psalms. On the cross, unable to breathe, lashes on his back, flies all around him. Our Lord and Creator knew this moment was coming, even before time as we understand it. He saw it all. He sees Christ on the cross. He knows all of this. He knows that this is what's going to happen and does it anyway. What are we really? Just sort of little nodes amid some limitless net, some interconnected thing, until we are bidden into relationship with him, living in the illusion of some freedom, some personal fiefdom of self. All of it, all prior incarnations of will. How do I look at them now? I look now with regret at the many times in my life that my selfishness has caused other people suffering and sadness, for surely my actions have done just that. And how the waywardlessness appears, the unconsciousness of it, the unconsciousness of those actions. But also, I have to be honest that I know I know over the course of any day when I have a lot of pressure applied to me, even in that dumb story that I told you about, how in my awareness, like, because I felt God with me, that's only this morning, I felt God very much with me. And then I noticed how easy it was. It weren't very much stimulation required to put me back in self, only a little bit of excitement, like, and a little bit of synchronicity, because I was on the phone and then I saw a person that was on the phone and, this person's like the man at the moment and maybe I can get something here. Didn't take very much. So I'm really aware of my fragility. And I'm also aware of something that you said to me a minute ago that was a very lovely compliment, that you said that vulnerability and authenticity were my superpower. And because I hadn't done stand-up for a long time, I'd kind of forgotten that. And I'd actually dropped down to a sort of, and also I've been in this incubatory phase of learning and sort of some suffering and some terrible fear, but also great grace, the grace of the baptism, the grace of meeting Christians, the grace of reading the Bible all of the time now. I'm like reading it all of the time. So like there's new input, there's new stimuli, there's different type of prayer. So George, what I'm saying is that when I look back at how I was, there are regrets for the negative consequences of my actions upon others. There are also sort of some embarrassment about my sort of kind of slapdash crass charisma, but there is also a kind of a deep acceptance that if he knows about the crucifixion and does it anyway, he knows about all my dumbass shit.
100%.
I got something. I'm so sorry. I literally prayed for this. I said, God, before I walk in, I want to be able to dive into a part of his heart that it might be uncomfortable. Reed, do you want another refill?
Yeah, I'm addicted.
Yeah, Reed. Hey, I just want to say thank you to Kyle at Yelich Realty Group. They got us to shoot at the iconic Wisconsin Club, and man, it is beautiful. We actually did a tour with me and Russell Brand, so you should go to his page and check that out. But thank you again for letting us use your guys' location.
Yeah, I'm addicted.
Yeah, Reed.
I'm addicted to it. I'm addicted
Celsius is good.
To your brand that's sponsoring you.
Let's go.
Hook it to my vein.
No, we don't do that anymore. We don't do that anymore. Which flavor do you want?
Which one did I just have? Because the one
Orange.
I just had, I like.
Orange. There's an orange out there on the thing.
Yeah, watermelon. Yeah. I would like more. Thank you very
Just
much. Forgive the interruption. And you were about to say something.
No, it's Reed's
important, and you were
fault.
about to say something. Bloody Reed, isn't it?
Reed. Damn it, Reed.
Destroy us, I think. That's Luciferian energy.
Yeah, I found him from Craigslist too. That's
where you're gonna find. That's demonic.
Yeah, he needs to go. But he's also he's cool. I like him.
Let's take him up there to that Illuminati altar.
Yeah. We're not supposed to talk about that.
Because it's a secret.
It's a secret.
You're right.
And you're doing really, really
You're
bad.
so beautiful.
No, that's his. I wasn't in the bathroom when you first arrived. Right before I came, I was in here. And then in my heart, I was like, I'm going to go pray one last time. And then when I went to go pray, I said, God, I want a part of him that he's dealing with. And I want him. Okay, this is basically what I'm trying to say. When I read that you didn't feel his presence, I said, when two or more gather in his name, I am present. I go, so in this interview, even if the camera shut off and it doesn't work or it gets deleted, I still want something to come out of this between you and I. And you said that you felt shame and you felt weird about your past. But I want to circle back to this. And I just read this, so I really pray that this enters your heart. the disciples were so curious on why Jesus was talking to the people in like parables. So they were like, yo, come here, Jesus. Why didn't you talk to him like us? And he leans in and he says, because you have been given access. So that right there should show you that when it's time, God will reveal himself to you.
Amen.
And I think this whole time you needed to go through these type of deals and heartbreaks and complications where you feel even guilty about it. Because what happens is God chose the most amazing, broken, lost people and held them as an example, saying, look how great they are now. And that's because they recognize their creator. So I wish you doubled down on what you did before, because now when I stand across from you and I see the authenticity that's coming out of you, and that there's a gentleman that walked in your shoes and he sees the light that you're shining now, that wasn't for no reason.
Woo!
At all. It's just my hype woman right here.
That was good, that bit.
Yeah.
Elevated the whole bit. You didn't have to do that much. I thought, this is important what's happening now. This is very important. I better pay attention.
So yeah.
Don't switch off now.
Yeah, Belle, come on.
But it's so true.
It's so true, bro.
Who talks like that?
I'm a part-time rapper. No, but it's so true, because you wouldn't be the person that you are without all your experiences. And I don't think that you would have this deeper connection and understanding for the gospel if it hadn't been for all the things that you have been in and out of. And what I wanted to ask you is that I recently saw you speak on the fact that before, you wanted to become famous because you needed acceptance, you wanted self-worth, you wanted to feel special when, you were in a low place. And so now, how do you view your relationship with your fame and even with acting? Do you see yourself taking a different route in order to, give different messages through your skills, through your gifts?
I don't know, Shawna, but do you think I think it's very common for people that are new to Christianity to get really overwhelmed by zeal and evangelical fervor in it, and just like, I'm just going to do this now. I'm just going to do this the whole time. Remember, like, that Hollywood and acting, I've been in a few films sort of maybe a couple of years ago or whatever, around COVID, end of COVID time. But I'd experienced a kind of very exciting, almost vertical ascent from doing stuff in the UK and being on MTV, then movie stars coming on my MTV show in the UK and then getting in movies. Like, it was sort of really amazing. Like when Adam Sandler came on my MTV show.
That's crazy.
With his agent, and then I interviewed him, and I was cheeky to Adam Sandler. I didn't even, but if you know Adam Sandler, he's not a high ego guy. For someone that's as talented as he is and a bigger star as he is, he's humble. Right? And he didn't mind that, I had him on for an interview and I was talking the whole time and not letting him talk. And he's like a big, massive movie star, and I just some guy with a weird haircut from England. And him and his agent, straight afterwards, were like, you're really funny. Come over to LA and I want to represent you, said Adam Sandler's agent, a man called Adam Bennett. And then they introduced me to Judd Apatow. And in about 2 or 3 meetings, it was I'm in one of Adam's movies. I'm in a Judd Apatow movie.
Brilliant movie, by the way. And you crushed that role.
Oh, thank you. You're so lovely. Thank you. And it felt sort of like it was just getting better and better and better. And always when I was a little kid, and as you described, mate, when I was a sort of fat, lonely little boy, I wanted glory. I wanted glory, and I wanted not to feel worthless, and I wanted not to feel sort of small and kind of dirty and ashamed, or whatever it was I felt. There's a number of ways of describing it, but in some way it was without worth. And so when all these things happen on that kind of sort of material or cultural plane, it feels very, very stimulating and very, very rewarding. But simultaneously, if you're kind of a person that's somewhat aware and awake, you're kind of ghoulingly aware that it isn't the thing that you were looking for. You're sort of it's not this, is it? But I better keep going. The same with the pursuit of promiscuity, which I pursued rather religiously, I have to be honest, and drugs, which similarly I was devoted to. All of these things. It's so ridiculous, really, when you consider the life of a devout person. You think, I can't be devout. I can't be thinking about Jesus actually the whole time, never taking my mind off Jesus, never taking my eyes off Jesus, not for a second, finding Christ in every single moment. Then I realised, I was a heroin addict. Didn't have no problem doing that. Ding! Where's the heroin? Get it now! Or when I was out there trying to sleep with everybody that I met, it was when no one had to tell me. I was sort of controlled by that kind of fervour. So now this kind of transition and this kind of transformation, it's happened kind of without effort. Nevertheless, there was a moment in the kind of like these sort of obvious in the ascent where it felt like it started to get disappointing even by its own terms. Like, you know, you do a movie, in this case it was Arthur, that didn't do as well as I thought it was going to do. And I just felt so sort of like broken by it. So sort of like, ugh. Sort of like somewhere between shame and disgust and kind of emptiness. And from then I was still doing stuff, but it kind of didn't make sense to me. And I remember, of course, before all of this, I've been a drug addict and I grew up without money. I'm from a normal kind of like, I say always for American people, like New Jersey. It's like a normal blue collar, working class background where you're not in part of all of this stuff. So like when it all started to sort of not mean anything, when it started to not even feel like it was a continual ascent, where I went back to was a different, like an awareness that I'm not even from here. This isn't what I'm about. I don't care about this stuff. And I was waiting for this. In retrospect, I was waiting for this. May I say this too, that I'm a father and I have 3 children. I have my beautiful little son, who's 11 months old. I have my 2 daughters, who are sort of 5 and 7, and just big, open, radiant, powerful faces, watching these 2 little girls growing. It's so magical and so marvelous. I think about, why would I want to go back into that? Why would I want to go back into those institutions and everything that I know that they represent and everything they elevate and celebrate and all of the things that they delight in and their values? I'm scared of it and appalled by it. And also it seems to me that a different world is opening up and I'm not in control of it. My job is to remain in submission and remain in grace. And I know that the way I do that is if I can conquer for all of the dark external forces I've encountered, there is nothing like the dark internal forces that I've encountered. And if through surrender and submission and by his grace, that can be overcome, then I will be his instrument. I don't want anything else.
You are, and I'll tell you why. And if you don't mind, I'm going to get vulnerable with a conversation that we had. And
That's
if you're
okay.
uncomfortable, we'll just take it out. But I'm glad we're having it here.
Good.
That's cute. Very dynamic, isn't it, between you two?
Yeah, we're best friends and in love.
Yeah, it's nice.
She was, we were going back and forth about her acting, and she was now coming into this spirit realm where she was like, oh, I don't want to take this role. This role's like not representing what I want anymore. And she's like, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't be in this industry. And maybe I should, or maybe I should. And she's going back and forth. I go, hey, okay. First of all, relax. Second of all, you have tools and talents that God's wanting to weaponize. And you do too, my friend. I don't know if you notice this, but you have a crazy acting career. You have a crazy stand-up career. You were wielding it for yourself before. Why are you not wielding it now for the Lord? And I'm not saying just go and make Christian movies. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that you're in a dark place, Hollywood. And all of a sudden you start shining. And you're a beautiful light now. And now what do you want to do? You want to leave that dark room? They need Russell there.
Yes, bring your light. I'm so sorry.
Belle, what are you doing here,
I
man?
don't know. Is it bad? Am I embarrassing myself?
An ABC sitcom, dude. The first one I made a comedic relief out of it. The second one is like,
Bring your light. It's another highlight.
No, but here's the reason why I told her. I go, the reason what actors, true actors, what they do is they see a role and they could feel it. And they could describe to an audience that doesn't know what that feels like and put them in their shoes. They tell a story and they tell it well. Tell Jesus' story. Tell it in different characters. You could just bring his characteristics. You don't have to be the actual character.
Mm-hmm. I hope you're saying, well, this is not now divinely inspired. This is kind of this type of rational and intellectual argument that I would have made to you a year ago. Throughout the pandemic period, we continually heard the refrain, follow the science. And I said, with the kind of content I was making at that time, without wanting to get into it, I'm sure people that are interested will easily be able to discern what my perspectives are. You can say follow the science as if you're talking about objectivity, but if science has become a subset of certain economic and corporate interests, you're not talking about science at all in terms of it being the practicable application of clinical data in order to achieve objective conclusions, because you're talking about a type of science where only certain experiments and trials are undertaken and only certain data is published, and it's only published if it's beneficial to a certain set of interests. Now, let me map that, if I may, onto the entertainment industry. Of course, there is the possibility, like, bloody hell, don't you think, both of you, could anyone make a film that more beautifully illustrates some of the ideas that need to be conveyed than The Matrix, where people sort of like wake up and find that they've been co-opted into a battery, that dark agents and satanic machine-like forces are running reality, and only Neo, the one, guided by John the Baptist, Morpheus and Trinity, both Marys, the mother and the saved whore combined, that if people can make that movie and it can sort of go gangbusters, blockbuster, incredible movie that defines like the sort of 90s and perhaps cinema since then, certainly that genre, people make that movie, we all watch that movie, we receive that message, and people just carry on. Doesn't it make you think there's something about that set of institutions and that establishment where we live in a very robust system? These satanic forces, these powers in dark principalities that are not of flesh and blood, I think this is a serious deal. And I think that these cultural institutions are owned by serious power. I don't mean, even if you don't want to get into the occult perspective.
No, it's true, because man searches for his own will. So if you're on top and you're rich and you don't believe in God, it's your will, i.e. Satan's will.
Nice. That's good. That's nice and simple. So, like, I do wonder if, like, even with the and I don't know, man. I like most people I know, like, because I've worked in that world for a while. I met people that are geniuses and brilliant and super funny and super smart. It's all full of like incredible, brilliant people. Whether it's Greta Gerwig or Jonah Hill or all sorts of amazing and really gifted and incredible Jason Segel, incredible, brilliant people. But my personal feeling now is that I don't know that I could sort of go in there. And that, by the way, is not an option that's available to me because I'm cancelled out of that world. So it's not like it's...
Hey, brother. Shh. Stop bringing your negative shit here. Jesus raised people from the dead. You think that a cancellation's going to stop Jesus' will? This is what you're doing. You're trying to get me to believe in your fear, and I won't.
That's lovely, George. I love it. But I'll add to that, and I don't believe. Thank you very much.
Could you grab me that Celsius right there? Just throw it to me.
The people are blasting this Celsius.
Yeah.
But I want to say that that's one side of it, because I don't like. Do you know what I felt in that moment, George? What have you done to us?
I'm so sorry.
This proud institution owned by the Illuminati.
Dude, you do not know how to hold a secret, bro.
Here we are at Bohemian Grove. And you can't respect their carpets.
Hey, Ryan Garcia, you get back. Get back.
Please.
I'm so
Ryan,
sorry.
you stay where you are. You've been very well. Don't let people criticize. Ryan, I will not let you convince me that you are not beautiful, Ryan. Don't bring your negative shit.
I'm so sorry. Reed, could you throw this away? I'm so sorry. And I keep interrupting you, and Belle keeps hyping you. I'm so sorry.
I like it. I've had that best day of my life. But like I said, it's not. There's two things that happen. One thing, because you're obviously very intuitive and sensitive people, like I'm sort of watching this, I'm thinking people like that. Someone might be watching this and go, well, it's all well and good you saying you don't want to work in Hollywood. Hollywood wouldn't have you. So I want to sort of firstly address that, the reality of that situation. But secondly, I want to say that this is a world that I have inhabited, and I talk to people still that are in that world, and I know people that are at the very apex of that world that are absolutely magnificent and brilliant and very successful people. And I think, how do they marshal their minds into award show acceptance speeches knowing what they know? How do we pretend that it's real and that it matters? So from one side, I'm aware of the Mammon, El Diablo, the dark coin.
Well, this is why Jesus says you will either worship me or money. There's two gods on this earth. So when you're like, how could they do that? It's because they worship it. And they will turn an eye to it because they don't want to see it.
So what I'm saying to you is, it's not like, because a minute ago, you asked me, do you want to do acting or whatever? And in part, I don't know, because who knows, in the future, maybe you'll create such a wonderful sort of media empire with your evident ability and varying skills and entrepreneurship, and you'll make movies, and you'll go, oh, Russell, you're the person I really want to play Paul in this movie. You're the only person I can imagine falling backwards off a horse and having the Damascene realization.
Paul, I like the way they put a spin on this.
Yeah, do you think Paul's American? You fascist pigs!
No, and
that's how empire works.
100, and it makes sense why you feel this way, coming from what you've seen and what you've experienced. And I think like this is kind of my take on it, and maybe I'm crazy, or maybe I'm naive. But I think that I've seen things like, for example, there's an amazing studio called Angel Studios.
Yeah.
And they're bringing real stories, beautiful stories, praising God, while also sticking to the art of it. And I think that, for a long time, what's been unfortunate is a lot of like Christian movies have been quite, deemed as cheesy, you know? And so nobody really wants to watch
It's the cheese.
them.
The cheese has been an issue, hasn't it?
It has been, and nobody really, wants to watch them, or they're not intrigued by it. It's not in the movie theaters. But I think what's so wonderful about this studio, and I think that what I, pray to God that I can be a part of, is that we can make films that are beautiful, that are artistic, that are incredibly entertaining for people, but that also hold a really important message. And I think that the youth of today, right, we all learn and take what we see online or what we watch from movies. You think that, oh, Russell's so cool, I want to be like him. And so they see your pattern and they want to be like you, right? But if we create movies who have an amazing message behind it, then maybe we can influence the younger generation to go, so they can be this movie star, but I don't have to be this terrible person.
I have one thing to add to her.
All right, but I want to answer Shawna's question also, if
Please
you will
go.
allow it.
Yeah. Wait. All right, go ahead.
You're a little git, aren't you? You're going to be, do you know what I think about you? You're going to be so lovely when you're like 50, when he's like a pappy kind of character. Ho, 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 with grandchildren and stuff. You're going to be sort of lovely, oh, jolly, like sort of. I imagine you in a sort of a string vest on a fishing boat on a Cretan shore. But what I want to say in response to this, is that this may be your path, this may be your path, and I certainly pray for that outcome. But some of the experiences that I've had is that all of us embark on that path saying, take politics, man. They all go, when I get there, then I'll be able to, from within, sort of I'll be able to make the system better. Like a sort of Bill Clinton, Tony Blair, all these people, like those kind of politicians of the 90s for you must seem like a sepia age away. They all said, like, they dropped historic commitments, to example, for, Bill Clinton deregulated the financial industry. Tony Blair severed the ties to the union movement, saying that, once we've got to do this in order to get in power, but when we get in power, we'll make sure we look after working class people. They didn't work when they got there because the system gets webbed and glommed onto their head. The system is not just human, it is a spiritual power. So you absolutely might be able to. Of course you might be able to. I would never seek to put limits on your evident radiance, the pair of you. But what I have experienced myself, like I've actually lived, is like, I thought like, I'm going to become... I was doing acid when I was like 16-year-old kid in Grays, right? So I'm tripping and like extraterrestrials and deities and miracles and stuff. And I'll get famous, but once I get famous, then I'll spread the message to the people. But I didn't realize how subtle it was. It's not just to be obsessed with the material world is to sort of want fast cars and fast, cheap experiences. No, the material world is self, ultimately. Once, like, the thing that I didn't see in Christianity when I was dismissing it, thinking, Christianity, that's not going to work. That's for old ladies and poor people. That's no good for me, right? What I didn't see in it, they were saying is that you have already got a God. You either will be worshipping this God or that God. Which one do you want? The one that can save you or the one that's going to destroy you? I didn't see that was in there because, like I told you earlier, I thought I'd read the Bible and I hadn't. I've not read it. Yeah. Like, when I read it, I was like, oh my God, I have to surrender to him. So what I'm saying to you is that I went into those various institutions thinking, oh, when I get there, then I'll change it. I'll change the world from within the system. But actually, the system changed me. The system woke up that within me, which was sort of greedy and materialistic and sensual and self-centered. Or it certainly heightened that which was already there. And so now what I'm trying to think is it possible for me to walk a path where I am shown,
100%.
I love your vulnerability. First and foremost, we would never want to tell you what to do.
Oh, 100%.
That's in Jesus' hands.
Just
always.
a fan of your acting.
Okay, yeah, huge fan.
Now I feel like they're my parents.
Yeah.
It's like a really bizarre sketch.
Okay. Why? Tell me what to do.
First, seek the kingdom. That's right. That's the thing, and then he's going to put that in your lane. The reason why I said all that is because, all right, hold on. This is the best way I could ask you. You're saying what I think, what I'm assuming is we're all sheep, right? So you are who your surrounding is, right? So if you're in this industry, the industry's so big and like evil that it will more suck you in than you suck it into your direction. Am I gathering this?
Kind of that, yeah.
Okay, but here's the thing. Who did Jesus hang out with when he was here?
Not movie producers.
Corrupted people. People so bad and so off the path, the Pharisees were like, this guy's crazy.
Yeah, but I'm saying Hollywood's more Pharisees than whores and tax collectors.
I'm saying that evil is evil, regardless of what you paint it as.
I appreciate that, but when we're talking about institution, what is the power center, or what are the power centers of Mammon's kingdoms? Like what Christ is plainly spending to hanging with is the dispossessed and the poor of spirit, and like that's who he's hanging out with.
He hung out with prostitutes. He hung out
Yes,
with tax
exactly,
collectors.
exactly.
Yeah.
Not I'm going to go hang out with sort of kings and big stars and top gladiators and
I get that. I
a little bit of a
understand.
chat
I
with
think-
Nicodemus. Other than that,
Yeah. By the
Check
way,
in with
Nicodemus
Nicodemus.
is a powerful name.
here's some lyrics, and then they're out.
All I'm saying is that if you ever wanted to just even dabble into that lane again, I just say that if you walk into a room with Christ, I don't care how dark that room is. I don't care how powerful they are. I don't care how many people are in their secret clan. I don't care if the devil himself is sitting next to you being like, no. They're going to have to shut up and bounce. That's the easiest way that I could put it. If we turn off this light, it becomes dark in here. If I bring this light in here, I don't care how much darkness is here, it becomes light.
Yes, I understand, but why would we accept the limitations, the artificial limitations of this room? Why would we say, I'm going to go and illuminate that institution, or I'm going to go and illuminate... because I think whether we're talking about institutions such as the entertainment industry and political institutions, and maybe like I began this by saying how sort of the science as a set of corporate interests interlocked with state regulatory bodies becomes corrupted. And what I feel like is that we have to create new systems.
Yes.
And you gave the example of Angel Studios, and I wouldn't mind, but I pray that Angel Studios is doing well, because I love The Chosen and I love Jonathan Rumi in particular, who was my body double when I done this show Ballers. So I had
No way.
Jesus was my body double.
So Jesus was always with you.
He was with me right there. They were using Jesus to light the shop.
Let's go.
Then I would step in.
Wow. That was nice. That was really nice. That was nice. I have bad news. We have to wrap up.
Then what are we going to do?
God willing, another episode soon in the future.
This went by so quick. So much more to ask.
It was
good.
it was such a pleasure, and I would like you to know that I'm here as a professional, but I'm also here as a huge fan. Growing up, I was always loving your movies, the way you did stand up, and it's really, really, really cool that God put us in this position to sit here and just discuss things. And if you ever want to carry these conversations off-side cameras or anything like that, I'll always be there for you.
It's a really beautiful offering, both of you. I really enjoyed sitting here talking with you and learning from you and watching you together. I've enjoyed your moments of enthusiastic hype. I enjoy your warm sincerity, your garrulousness and your kindness. You're a real gift to be around, both of you. It's been a real laugh.
You're so
Thanks.
poetic. It's beautiful.
Do you think I am poetic?
Very poetic.
It might be just because you're British.
It's not that.
You're so poetic
It's
with
not
your
that.
words.
It's
The
not
way-
just Britishness.
No. It's the way you explain things, the way you view things, the way you write things. It's beautiful.
Thanks, mate. Thanks,
Thank you for
both of you.
coming.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you, guys. This was a great episode, and I will see you guys next time.